Good morning, Americans. This is your favorite alien on the afternoon of Saturday, January 4th, 2025. Well, in terms of this month being the change of power again from Biden to Trump, the other way around this time, let me tell you about your precious little thing that you guys call the White House. The presidential home. It's really a disaster, okay? And in more ways than one. When you were creating the city of Washington, and George Washington, well, he wanted to make the house something special. So he had a hand in its development. He wanted a house. But he didn't want it to be where the president and his staff worked. He wanted it to be a house, just like a governor's house, stuff like that. But anyway, it didn't work out that way. Today, the White House is seen as the seat of the executive branch, not the president's personal residence. He just occupies the second floor and maybe the third floor. And the White House of today is a very modern invention that was done between 1949 and 52 when it was guttered. I mean, literally guttered. The only thing left was the outside. The inside is completely rebuilt with all kinds of defensive mechanisms and tunnels that the president can go out of there if something happens. And the White House is a fortress now, not a White House, not a presidential house. And yes, it has, I would say, around 35 bathrooms. Yeah. But to start with, the White House didn't look the way it looked. It didn't have the protocols that it does today. When it was finally opened up in 1800, and John Adams decided, hey, I know I'm not going to be here, but I'm going to be there for a few months, so let's move it. So I became the first president to occupy the presidential palace. That name was started. Like I said, the White House has got some names, a lot of them not good. But the presidential palace didn't stick very long because, oh boy, you can imagine today, you wouldn't want the White House to be called the presidential palace, would you? No. That sounds yuck. Yeah. Well, from 1800 to around Wilson's time of 1913, the White House was, everybody could walk in there, oh yeah, okay, like in Lincoln's time and all the other times. Oh, hello, Mr. President, can I come in for dinner? Yeah, just walk in. You don't even have to knock, just open the door and inside, oh, hello, Mr. President. Oh, sorry, I didn't know you were at the outhouse. Okay. Well, stuff like that. And it kept that way. But under Wilson, it got more shut down. Oh, by the way, the predecessor to Wilson, William Howard Taft, he also had a cow in the front lawn of the White House named Nellie. And people could still walk up to say, hello, Mr. Taft. And, Mr. Taft was a heavy guy. He weighed about 300 pounds. And sometimes you had to get a heavy chair for the poor Mr. President, because if you didn't, oh, sorry. Yeah. Well, can you imagine you walk up on the lawn of the White House and, ooh, oh no, Nellie was here. Oh yeah, Nellie was there. Yeah. Yeah. Well, and by the way, by the time that Roosevelt died in 1945, the White House was in such disaster that it had all kinds of nicknames. From 1800, the White House from 1800 to 1814 or 1812, 1814 was the pink house, because it was pink, it wasn't white. And if it wasn't for Dolly Madison, who took everything out of the White House just before the British came in and burned it, whoop. But it didn't burn the outside. They kept the outside the same way. That's still the original structure of the White House is there. They expanded it a bit because they added the portico and the West Wing and all the other stuff that came in after that. Because remember, the White House is the seat of the executive branch. Well, when Truman left the White House to get it fixed up in 1949, they just literally guttered the entire inside of the White House. So what you see in the White House today is not what it looked like before 1949. And they put steel reinforcements and all kinds of stuff in there and added defensive formations. And they improved those over the decades. So today you got the White House is a fortress. You try to get in there, you're going to have a hard time. So by the time that Truman came back in 1952, just before his term of office was over, he liked the White House because there's a lot of different hidden stuff under the floors and tunnels that they say that the president could walk anywhere in the city and appear anywhere in the city, and it's attack-proof down there too. You got movies that have been done recently, 1990s and early 2000s, on the White House, attacking the White House, trying to blow the heck out of it. You've seen those movies, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. Well, in fact, one guy tried it in 1994 for real. And like the guys over here in New Orleans and Las Vegas recently this month, he was a retired military person who had a Cessna and flew it into the White House in 1994. He didn't like Clinton. Well, a lot of people didn't like Clinton at the time in 1994, just before they knew about Mrs. Lewinsky. Yeah. But anyway, he crashed. The official government thing is he crashed his Cessna just before he got to the White House. Didn't do major damage. But the unofficial report is he got shut down by the defense. They never did show good pictures of that airplane. They probably showed another Cessna crashed and pictures of it. But my thing is that the anti-defense system, probably the missiles or railguns, got him and made mincemeat out of him in there. It's very dangerous to go into the White House, especially if you're trying to fly into the White House. Yeah. Can you imagine if one of those airplanes in 9/11 tried to fly into the White House? It would have been blown out of the sky before it even got there. Hopefully, if President Bush was around, he could tell you. But, he wasn't in town at the time. But that's the only way we know. Who was in charge of the White House at the time? Was it Vice President Cheney? Would he have ordered the destruction of the airplane just before I got there? The one hit the Pentagon, and the other one was going to hit the White House until they took it down in Pennsylvania. But anyway, the White House today is a fortress. It's the head of the executive branch. It's the head of all the political mess that you have accounted for in the last 80 years. Ugh. But it's not the White House. It's not the people's house. It is a disaster. And like I said, from 1800 to 1949, it was called everything from dilapidated house to an eyesore to everything in there. Don't believe me? Check it out. This is your favorite alien saying, come on, Americans, your own house that you supposedly revere as a presidential house. And guys like Trump have done nothing to make it any better. Or Biden. This is your favorite alien saying, and the only people you have to blame for all this mess is you. Good night.